Hi, I'm Angelo Costanza and you're watching Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV.
G'day guys and welcome to the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. I'm your host Ellis Gelios and we're in today to review the Perth Glory game on Wednesday evening and of course preview the big game on Sunday against Central Coast Mariners at Coopers Stadium. Now I'm here on my own today. Had someone pull out, so it's a rare episode where I don't have a guest, but obviously it's never going to be like that in the future, and there's plenty of exciting things coming up, lots of past players, people in the media, and some people from the Red Army that will be joining me in the studio, as well as some others from outside all of those categories. So there's heaps to look forward to. Just going to quickly touch on the Perth game. It's pretty simple. We went there to draw and we did. I think we were unlucky that Perth weren't reduced to 10 men, which they should have been. And yeah, I think it wasn't a particularly nice game from a neutral point of view at all. Both sides struggled to wear one another down, and I think a 0-0 result is quite fair. From our perspective, there's no way that you can say that going to Perth and stopping them from scoring, first of all, and getting a result, secondly, there's no way you can say that that's not an immensely good effort. Perth here and there have been exposed a little bit in the past 5 weeks, but on their home turf so far this season, I think they've only lost to Sydney. So yeah, they've been brilliant, and I think it's a good point and a very good result and a fantastic effort from the side. So Central Coast Mariners, it's a 5:30 local time kickoff on Sunday evening at Cooper Stadium. Adelaide Inn's big one is Michael Jakobsen and Carlo Armiento has also been promoted. No outs, still unavailables, Baba Diawara, Lockie Brook and Apostolos Stamatolopoulos. Central Coast Mariners, now this is a concerning one. So coming in for the Mariners, Matt Simon, Mario Shabao. So they're definitely going to be well equipped with attacking options. No outs for them. On the side, they are missing some people. Corey Gamiro without long-term injury. Tommy Orr, who hasn't had the best of seasons, let's be clear about that. And also Jake McGing. Just running through the stats. So we've beaten them 19 times. They've beaten us 18 times, and there's been 7 draws. Against them, we've scored 65. Against us, they've scored 61. So we'll get straight into the key components section for this one, guys. Firstly, should we be happy with 4 points from 3 away games consecutively? Yeah, look, there's 2 ways you can look at it. First of all, in the context of the A-League in general, obviously, away from home, you're never expected to win. So to get 4 points from a possible 9, I don't think is bad by any means. However, really this season, it's been a case of us having our success on the road. And so do you look at that as an opportunity missed, given that we haven't taken, let's say 7 points instead of the 4 out of a possible 9? So I don't know, you guys tell me, but obviously we won 1 against Western Sydney, had that loss to Sydney and the draw to Perth. So all in all, I don't think it's a bad effort at all, and I think we have to be satisfied, particularly given the concerns around players that we've got available for us at the moment. It's a pretty thin midfield that he's having to rotate through. It's been quite a fixture log, so in overseas leagues it's the run of the mill to play 4 games in 2 weeks, but it's not in Australia. So when you've already got players injured and you're having to rotate like that, it only makes matters harder. And yeah, I think for that matter, we've got to be pretty satisfied with 4 points from 3 straightaway games, and hopefully a few more home games to look forward to now, starting with Sunday against the Mariners. So that's my take on whether we should be happy with our recent form on the road. Mariners' attacking options way healthier than ours. Yeah, look, Central Coast are not a side that score goals at will, but Matt Simon actually didn't look too bad against Melbourne City, which was their first win of the season just last week. So I'm worried about Matt Simon. coming back, just because of the fact that I don't particularly rate him as a footballer, but I do feel like he has a history of scoring annoying goals against us, tap-ins from down the years, and I just hate him. I hate Matt Simon in general, so it irritates me that he's back for them. And Mario Chabot has a bit of pace. He's got a bit of liveliness to him, and he's certainly a good in for them. So on the whole, we've got George Blackwood back, but he didn't even play against Perth, so you've really got to look at the fact that we've got pretty inconsistent attacking options at the moment in who we persist with. So in terms of which side's more top heavy, I think it's definitely them. Maroney, he was awesome at centre half against Perth Glory, but Michael Jacobson is now available again after he had to serve a suspension. Now, I'm not sure what to make of this. Maroney, the first sort of 20 odd minutes, there were a few shaky moments, but he really came into it, and him and Elsie looked very comfortable against Perth for the most part. So now that you've got Michael Maroney, who's getting older, he's probably not the kind of player that's going to be able to play back-to-back games and bomb up and down the wing, playing as a fullback on that right side. Maybe that's even his future. Maybe Marco Kurz actually thinks to himself, we don't need to sign a third centre half, and we can just use Michael Maroney there as a stopgap when we need. Or did he impress you that much that we should be playing with Michael Maroney there every game from now on, and make him a starting centre half? It seems ridiculous, because you wouldn't fancy that one of Elsie or Jacobson gets demoted for someone that's never been a centre back in their career, but it is an option. And say there's a lack of discipline that goes on with one of those other two options that Marco Kurz has persisted with for the majority of the season. I think he's the kind of manager that would look at changing it up and being experimental and giving Michael Maroney a few goes there. So it's possibly a bit of a rejig that may or may not happen over the course of the next few weeks. What happens to our midfield now? So obviously you saw Constant come in against Perth Glory. What does he do now? Does he go back to Leah Isais and Ken Also at 10? Whilst he's using Halloran as the 9, I would suggest he doesn't do that, because I don't really think it works. So I think he needs to rejig the midfield, maybe even change the formation, maybe even go to a 4-4-2. Try two strikers. I know we do have a tendency to become a 4-4-2 when we're defending, but I think for now Marco Kurz has really got to earn his money and come up with a way to make our starting 11 a bit more inventive, because I think Leah and Isais just isn't really working. It's it only guarantees so much going forward, and Vince Lee is definitely getting to a point where he's not really going to be able to back up week in, week out. So he's got to find a formula there, Marco Kurz. Moving on, and just to touch on Mirko Boland, he's obviously gone on personal leave. It's very important that no fuss is made about that. He's perfectly entitled to take a break, given that it concerns private circumstances. And anyway, he's looking like when he does come back from being on his leave that he's going to slot straight back in, because he did play again in the youth team against Brisbane Roar last weekend. I'm told he played a half, or perhaps just over a half. I can't quite recall how long he played, but it was definitely at least a half. And I think he's just about back to full fitness. So look out for Mirko Boland coming back in. Maybe that's the natural scenario or solution, I should say, to the 3 in midfield. But there's also the chance that he could break down again, or that he'll take a while to get match hardened. So look out for what happens there. Strain getting some real momentum, playing as the right back, and I feel like basically Marco Kurz has nailed him down in that spot. So Maroney becoming the third centre back now might have some legs to it, just so that he doesn't have to have a sort of headache every week about who he starts on the right side of defence, because there has been a lot of talk about, which of those two options is better for us, Strain or Moroney. I think, as of the last few weeks, Strain has shown that he's probably the best option there. He can definitely get even better. He's got plenty of time to develop, and he's already played a lot of senior games for someone as young as him, so I think it makes sense to keep him there. But good on Ryan Strain, he's been in fantastic form. We've got to remind ourselves that they did beat Melbourne City, who we struggled against hugely at home a few weeks back. They did beat them, the Mariners, and given everything that's gone on under Mike Mulvey and, the Usain Bolt failure of a PR stunt, and, all the sort of reports coming out that there's players who are unhappy and behind the scenes and injuries and people unavailable, it does show that there's still character in that side, and so I feel like we need to remind ourselves of that and ensure that we don't go into this thinking that it'll be an easy win. I have seen people write easy win literally on the event that's come out for the Mariners game on Facebook. I don't know how much of us you've watched this year, but I don't think any game's going to be an easy win for us, really. So I'd be definitely a bit cautious going into this game, especially considering our home form more than anything. The fact that at home this season we just haven't really been up to it, and I think we've only won 2 games at home all season, and so you've got to be definitely considering the fact that Central Coast aren't going to come and lay down and let us get all 3 points without breaking a sweat. Newcastle beat the Mariners on Wednesday night just before our game against Perth Glory, and that narrowed the gap for the playoffs. So we've now got, thanks to Wellington not winning this past week, we've now got them ahead of us, because we drew and they lost, of course, on Wednesday night to Sydney. But that gap between 7th and 6th, which we're only 1 point above 6th, has been narrowed now to 7 points. So, we've got Newcastle hot on our heels now, and it's really important that Newcastle win on the weekend, that we make sure that we beat Central Coast on Sunday, because we don't want that gap to get any more narrow. We want to at least say that we make the finals this season. I think that's very, very, very important. That's really the pass mark. If we don't make the finals, you feel like it's not really a pass mark this season. So we really need to make sure we get into those playoffs. Now, I just want to touch on some news that's come out recently. So Vao Migliaccio wrote a very concerning article, which basically mentioned that Craig Goodwin is being headhunted by a number of Asian clubs, Chinese, Japanese, and a Thai club, I think, are in for him. Now, I've actually got Craig's dad coming on the show, Tony Goodwin, next week, so we might be able to set up a little deadline episode where, there's still a possibility something happens to Craig Goodwin while I'm sitting here with his dad previewing the Brisbane Roar game next weekend. Hopefully that's not the case, and the club comes out and diffuses any kind of talk that Craig Goodwin might be exiting the Reds, because obviously without Craig Goodwin and without any reinforcements coming in the January window, you know how bitter a lot of us are going to be. Let's put it that way. Also on the departures front, Nikola Miljuznic is said to have signed with a new club for next season. Now, I'd heard from someone that Nicky Miljuznic was really keen to play in Europe next season and wanted to go to Europe. I would have thought that would be for a holiday, to be honest, because I don't know what he's smoking there, unless it's sort of a third tier European league somewhere. But anyway, apparently Nikola Miljuznic has secured a deal to leave next season. Apostos Stamatolopoulos also rumoured to have signed with someone. We assume that's Western Melbourne, because Western Melbourne did come out expressing some interest. No mention of anyone coming in which is the most worrying thing, I've got to say. There's been a lot of rumours about players we're going after that have just not eventuated. I was really disappointed to see that Mitch Duke didn't get. Maybe we did talk to him, but obviously we weren't particularly serious about getting him because nothing emerged, and he ended up signing with the Wanderers. So another lost possibility there, which is worrying. But it is what it is. So we move forward. There's still an opportunity for us to sign someone, obviously, but the gap between now and the window closing is shrinking. I'm really quite worried about that. Just going to talk about an explosive post in the Red Army. Someone came out and said that basically, and I won't name who it was, but someone did come out and say that we don't really have a right to moan, as much as we do as Adelaide United fans. And this person looked at the attendance rate and said there's 8,000 to 10,000 at best. If you want the club to be more ambitious and spend more, then you need to make sure that you're there every week and contributing to the revenue stream that the club gets, because at the moment, why would the club invest when it doesn't even guarantee we're going to get more than 500 or 1,000 people more? And obviously if you're going to spend heaps on someone like a bigger name than what we usually go for, that would be the target, to increase attendances by at least 3,000 or 4,000. So that's an interesting sort of take on it. I personally don't agree. I think it has to work the other way around. If you want people to come out, show that you're willing to be ambitious. Bring someone here, bring a big name number 9, and get everyone up and about and get the supporters queuing up for tickets. That's the way I see it personally. But look, each their own. Everyone's entitled to their say. And Red Wig man Steve Savaro did actually come out and address how in that Red Army forum, a lot of the time people are a little bit rash when it comes to signalling out why someone's wrong on that forum. That forum is for everyone to have their say, I think, and I think the Red Army would endorse that view as well. There should never be hostility shown towards other fans just because they have a view that differs hugely to what yours is. So there's that to consider. Final predictions for this game. I'm going for a 1-0 win to Adelaide United, and I think it's going to come from Isaiah's free kick. I think we'll be on the ropes towards the end, and I think we'll really sit back and we'll invite them to have the majority possession in the last 5 or so minutes. But I think we'll win 1-0 through an Isaiah's set piece of some nature. Our most important player versus theirs. I'm going to say at the moment that our most important player is, without any question, Craig Goodwin. I think, against the Mariners, an inexperienced defence, we've got to be getting him on the ball early, forcing him to get into space and really just take players on. Because if you look at Craig Goodwin in the first 5-6 weeks of the season, he was very much never second-guessing himself when he was on the ball. He's a good dribbler and he was always willing to drop the shoulder and try and beat defenders. That's not always happening now, even though he's been scoring again as of late. I really think, if we get Craig Goodwin into positive situations where he can run at their fullbacks, I think we're going to be fine in terms of chance creation. So definitely Craig Goodwin, key player for us. Key player for them, I think, is probably Hiardier. He's really quite explosive in their midfield, and he's the kind of player that can really turn a game as well. The only issue they have with him at the moment is that he's not lasting 90 minutes, and whether that's down to his actual physical fitness or the fact that Mike Mulvey doesn't prefer him for whatever reason, I'm not sure. But Hiardier for the Mariners is 100% at the moment their most important player. So we'll see you at Cooper Stadium on Sunday. There's plans to grow the page with lots of upcoming videos. I'm not going to announce right now who all the Legends players are that I've got lined up. You know that there's a Costanzo interview coming out very, very soon. I know I keep saying that, but with all the games that have been going on recently, we just want to make sure that when we release the Ange Costanzo video, it suits the Facebook algorithm so that that gets the most attention. So yeah, there's heaps coming out. Just want to quickly touch on Marcos Flores at Adelaide City and obviously Karuska at West Adelaide. This is fantastic for the NPL, and it's great because obviously we're going to be in the NPL, our youth team, and it just adds to the storylines, doesn't it? Having two former great players of the club, both Argentinians, both flair players, number 10s, playing in the NPL. Marcos Flores has definitely been around a lot, but you can safely say with Karuska, who was playing A-League just last season, that's a massive win for the NPL to have both those players in there, and I think it's fantastic. So well done to both Adelaide City and West Adelaide on securing those two players. That's really it from me today, guys. I hope everyone's braving the heat well. Make sure you stay hydrated. It has been a pretty shocking last few days in Adelaide in regards to heat. So make sure you stay safe and encourage people to check on those that might be vulnerable, the elderly, etc., who can't necessarily afford air conditioning to be on all day. Make sure you look after each other. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you for the fan cams directly after the Mariners game, with plenty more to come after that. I've been your host, Ellis Gelios. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Thanks, guys. Cheers.